Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, and thank you for joining me on the In Review, where we look at the top news of the week. And as we embark on a bank holiday weekend, today, Thursday, the 29th of April, 2021. And without further ado, we're just going to get straight into it. It has been a very good week this week, I would say, so far. The sun is shining, and we're out. And very concerning things around the world, though, even though we are moving forward in the UK in regards to COVID, we are seeing what is happening in India, which is very heartbreaking. I've got a couple of Indian friends which I spoke to, and they sort of break it down from a direct perspective. We have seen in America, President Biden has given the State of the Union, and Tim Scott, the Republican, response saying that America is not racist, but of course we cannot tolerate racism, which was agreed by Vice President Kamala Harris, which is very interesting, I should say. And of course, there are other factors thing which are happening, but without further ado, let me bring in my colleague, Mr. Anthony Francis. Anthony, good morning. How are you? While we're waiting for the others who are maybe having a sleep, how's everything?
Yeah, we're good. Thank you, Selborne. How you doing? Good to see
Uh,
you again this week.
yeah, I'm good. What can I say? What can I say? Making sure that I keep my walk and talk and just enjoying the day, enjoying the time. I must say one of the things which I find very interesting is that I find people now challenging me when they don't see me and they say, "Where are you? Where's my dose of energy?" and I took a cue from yourself when you said, "Silver, when you can't get to do it, make sure you do some videos so you can put it out there," which I've started to do as well. So when I'm walking, sometimes I find myself creating a few contents so I have someone leftovers to spill over.
Well, to be honest, you'd be amazed how much extra media you can get from one piece of content. I mean, I talk about that in some of my coaching programs, but it's amazing how much material you can get from one piece of content that you create. So I think what you're doing is right. I think you picked the right week or the right weeks to go out and do your walks. The weather's been fantastic this last week, and so I think you might find yourself with a few people joining you soon, Selborne.
Well, I started to think about when Tiger Woods is doing his thing and they have this crowd of people walking behind him. I was saying to somebody that I'm going to see myself in Central Park one time. Wait, where's Silver in Central Park? He's in Rwanda. They got these tons of people walking behind me. Hey, Keisha, how are you doing?
Hello. It's good to be here.
I was going to say Happy New Year. I don't know why I was going to say that, but happy New Week. Happy New Thursday.
Happy New Week. That will do.
Yeah. How are you doing? How's the day so far?
It's been great today. Again, I because I work from home now, and I'm trying to put in place breaks in my day, breaking up my day. So I think I took about maybe two or three breaks today, just actually walking out, going in the garden, walking around, coming back. So I think that's
just walk around the back garden, yeah.
Chilling in the back garden for like 20 minutes and then come back into work. That helps a lot. I mean, it's it's good for the fresh air. So instead of actually just staying indoors all day, I'm gonna just try to break it up like that.
Well, let's bring in our co-host as well. Peace and blessings all the way from Mineola, Florida. Hey, Michelle Clark. So we got to bring in Michelle.
Michelle.
Michelle, how are you doing? Good. Well, guys, listen, I'm going to straighten. Dr. Burton, of course, we like to keep him on the job, making sure that he's doing well. So he's going to come in a bit. I said to him, David, do some more work for the Queen in the meantime, Queen and Country. I was looking at the news the other day, and we find ourselves back onto this key topic with regards to the Prime Minister. And now it's like every week there's something. First it was Dyson, then it was this company which went down under. Now it's number 10, renovation. Anthony, what's going on? Is the Prime Minister on a slippery slide?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, Selborne, this is classic Boris, where he's trying to deflect all the information, all the attention from what actually is a story there. I mean, and the story is, how does he actually get his money to pay for his residence? And not only that, I think it highlights the fact that clearly he's somebody who is willing to take money for favors. And, we've seen that with the pandemic, with a lot of the cronyism in terms of contracts that have been awarded to people who have had family members who are directors or associates, etc. And all we're seeing here now is the thin edge of where it all starts from, and it starts from the top. I mean, all he had to do was simply explain who paid for this renovation. He could have produced receipts and said, "Look, here's the payment. Here it is." He could have held it up in the House of Commons yesterday when he was being spoken to by Keir Starmer, and said, "Here is the receipt. This shows I paid for the thing myself." But he didn't. He went on to talk about the pandemic, and he went on to talk about ventilators going to India to deflect attention away from the fact that clearly he has something to hide. So I think the more he digs himself into a hole and doesn't come clean with the information, the more people will start to look into this and think, well, hang on a minute, there must be some smoke here, because all of a sudden now we're not seeing any evidence produced by Boris. And I think he's and to add insult to injury, he did make the cardinal sin of actually saying, or his partner saying, they wanted to get rid of John Lewis furniture. You can't do that.
So it's interesting. You mentioned a while ago that the cardinal sin there, because at the same time, didn't each prime ministers also get caught up in that same thing with renovation of number 10, or he's at number 10. David Cameron was at number 11 because the flat was a bit bigger, but he's at number 10, and Rishi Sunak is at number 11.
Yeah, so basically, from I believe that the each prime minister has a budget of something. I believe it's around 25,000,
30,000.
Some sort of renovations to their apartment, and clearly his partner Kerry Simons did not want the existing furniture or decor that was in the room or rooms, and decided she wanted to bring in an interior designer. Now, interior designers aren't cheap. And especially if you're the prime minister, you're going to be bringing in somebody who's obviously of a named profession or a named individual. So they brought in someone. They spent another 50,000 on top of the 25,000, and people want to know who paid for it. I mean, Boris is only on 100,000 per year. Where's he got the money from? Who paid for it? And if it was paid for by somebody else, does that now mean that he's beholden to that person?
Keisha, what's your take on it? Shouldn't the prime minister be able to just get his mate to just pay some money and just sort him out? You know what I mean? Is it prime minister?
No, absolutely not. I think he's gone too far. I mean, as Anthony said, there is a budget which he's given, and I think it's 30,000, and he should stick to that budget. And if he decides to exceed that budget, he should actually give us an explanation as to why he's going beyond that budget and where he's going to get that additional funds from. Again, this is nothing new, because you had the former prime ministers that, for example, David Cameron actually found themselves in the same situation before. But clearly, there is something that we need to do as a people, as a government, but the government in particular, to correct these wrongs. I don't think it's a good look, given the times that we're in, that some people can live lavishly and have this luxury life and dictate how much money they wish to spend and to do repairs. I mean, I think the wallpaper was about I can't remember, 200-something thousand. I might need to check that out. It was a very costly wallpaper, and the sofas and so on. And you just think to yourself, why are you spending so much money on this residence when people actually right now is in need of housing accommodation? There's people are struggling right now even to get jobs. Yeah.
No, I'm laughing because someone says Barber is going to be called up next, and again he's called up as Barber. But hey, David, how are you, sir? Have you been doing some renovation while you're late, David?
No, work and duty calls. I don't know that Boris will be calling up his barber. I don't know that he likes the kind of stylist aspect. He just lets things roll. And I think that's what he's going to do with all of this. I don't think there's going to be very much that changes. There'll be a lot of huff and puff. But I heard today that his actual ratings have gone up in some sectors. So I don't think it's going to really harm him. I think he's probably just going to ride the storm, just like his hair rides the storm.
Well, I was that's very interesting what you said. It's interesting what you said, that his ratings have gone up, and we're pending the May the 6th election. And what he said, Anthony, also in the House was, let's just wait until May the 6th. So he's using that as a reckoning moment, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, for him, as David said, I mean, so far he's ridden this thing out, not just with the flat, but don't forget a few weeks back, there was another incident involving Boris, where, in fact, one of his ministers actually resigned when he didn't accept the result of the Priti Patel investigation. He just more or less said, "I'm not accepting it," and just carried on as normal. And his minister for standards actually then said, "Well, if you're not happy with it, I'm going to resign." So, clearly he's he's happy to ride roughshod when he feels like it. And as David said, I think he feels that this is something that he can simply just brush over and just simply carry on. And after a few weeks of people huffing and puffing, they'll move on to the next thing.
Mm. Let me hear what Michelle Clark is saying. I don't know England laws, but a lot of these world leaders need to take a lesson from the Prime Minister of Germany. Now, what is it about the Prime Minister of Germany? Anybody know about the Prime Minister of Germany? What does not Prime Minister, but the Chancellor?
She means Chancellor. Maybe the Chancellor. She means. I don't know. I will have to elaborate. Michelle Clark, please elaborate. What do you mean? And we can then voice our opinions.
Yes. I may have to go on. So what are the rules then? Anyone know what are the rules? What are the exact rules in the sense that if the Prime Minister is found to be culpable, if the Prime Minister is found to have lied, because now it's before a committee, isn't it? What happens if he's found and this expenses thing and the police is calling? Well, that's what will normally happen. What happened next?
Well, I don't think anything's going to happen next. I think, as we just said, I think this is a situation where, if I'm not mistaken, the final say on this is going to be with Boris anyway. And I think he's going to simply use this as a distraction to say, look, the real issues are, look at the results we're receiving from the pandemic. Look how we're supporting India. Look how we're trying to make sure that we can get our economies back and open up our businesses to get back to work. They're the things he's going to be sort of raising high profile, and he's going to be using this and saying no one really cares much about what I've done in with some wallpaper in my property. And he's going to simply just use that line over and over again and deflect from it. And I think eventually people will tire. Yes, there is some substance in terms of what's gone on there. And I clearly believe that he has lied in terms of how he's gone about to pay for this. But I think ultimately, I think he'll get away with it because people will probably feel that there are bigger things to talk about.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, I guess for this, we talked about it last week and we talked about it the week before. I guess this is one of those cases whereby it just go to the press. Do you believe the press and the media is giving him a good time? Do you believe they're not that very forceful?
I think the press and the media are jumping on it. It's anything to sell newspapers or anything to sell headlines. They willingly have Dominic Cummings come out with more revelations. Spread them out every couple of days. Just pepper it out there, and it would be fantastic for them because they can keep the story running. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I'm not saying it's a good thing. I just think that's what potentially could easily occur. So I don't think they're giving them a soft ride at all.
Yeah.
And definitely, in PMQs, it's not a soft ride for him either. I just think that he's kind of the opinion now that he just has to ride this out. We keep saying he's just going to ride it out. And I think ultimately people will just find another headline, another news story. That's what he's hoping for, at least, that we talk about something else. But I don't think what he's accused to have been done is good at all. You speak to the regular person in the street, and I'm sure they would share that same kind of sentiment that it's not a right thing to have done, and he's accused to have done it. Then you would expect there to be some fallback from that or some heat from that, but I don't think he's the person who's going to catch that heat at this moment in time.
Well, but what about Keisha? What about?
Yeah.
Sorry, did I say Keisha? Yes, I'm correct.
Yes, you did. Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I'm trying to put a fast on it. Like kids came out. I know it's Keisha I'm talking to. Let me just double check right here so you know exactly who you are. You know what I mean?
You got it spot on today, Selborn.
You're Keisha. Listen. Yeah. Keir Starmer, he's not making an impact though.
I know, it's such a shame, isn't it? Because he's actually calling for Boris to resign because of what's happening right now. I don't think there's nothing will come up from this because I think a couple of years ago there was this expense claims allegation amongst a lot of MPs, and there hasn't been a lot of resign that went on then. don't think it's going to happen now. It's one of those things that comes in the press and goes. It seems to be a lack of accountability
Yes.
around this generally. I mean, but in terms of Keir Starmer, yes, I was really hopeful because initially when he was appointed as a leader of the Labour Party, but I just don't. It doesn't come across as if he's very effective at this stage. I'm not sure why. I think he might need to come up with something a better way of, I don't know. I don't know if it's a PR approach or something, but it's just not really targeting or hitting.
I think one of the things I find, sorry to interrupt there, Keisha, but one of the things I find is that he just doesn't have the numbers, and the numbers are stacked against anybody trying to take over or get the numbers to support a no confidence motion or whatever it is that you want to throw the Prime Minister. So I think that's part of it. I guess if they had the numbers, he'd get the traction, to be quite honest with you.
Yes.
But he just doesn't have the numbers, even if he gets other parties on his side, SNPs, so etc. He just doesn't have that. So I think that's the issue. I do think he's got the arguments, but I just don't think he's got the numbers.
Yeah.
Silvan, I gotta log out and come back in. I see some. I think I've got an echo.
Okay.
So let me log out and come back in.
That's all right.
Okay.
Anthony, in wrapping up that point, Anthony.
Yeah, I think to be honest, one of the problems that Keir Starmer has is his presentation style. I mean, don't forget, Keir Starmer is a former barrister, and sadly, he's actually trying to dissect Boris when he has his PMQs in a way that he would do somebody on the witness stand, and that's not really the sort of way or the style that you want to present in PMQs. PMQs is lively, it's personalities, it's real, the sort of cut and thrust of what's going on, and sadly he just comes across as being a bit boring. He's on point with what he says, and the actual content, what he actually tries to challenge the Prime Minister with, is correct, and it's very detailed. But sadly, his style and presentation just doesn't come across as somebody who actually can invigorate to and enthuse people who are watching. It's very as I say, he's using his skills as a barrister.
Yes.
It just doesn't come across very effectively in the. I mean, you saw Boris this week when he was being challenged over the expense of his renovation in his flat. And Boris was all guns blazing, animated, hand waving, hair going all over the place. And he actually gave a really good performance in terms of really trying to sort of say to him, well, look what I've done. And Keir Starmer just casually sort of said, well, and can you please show us your expense receipts, please? And it just sort of just took the whole sail, the whole wind out of his sail. And I thought to myself, crikey, Boris is on the ropes. And he can get away with it, and I think that's the problem. He just hasn't got that personality, sadly.
Yeah, and interesting. Boris also said to him, "You think you're in court now, or whatever like that? I'm here for this country. I'm here to do that." Keisha, was it Keisha? You're back, yes?
Yes, I'm back. But I think that's why people really, I think, drawn to Boris, not necessarily because of substance and such, but because he just, his drama, the theoretical side of him. Flamboyance, So I think it does work for MP question times.
Yes. Well, anyway, we'll keep coming on to that.
I still have the echo.
You still have an echo? Oh, you have an echo?
I don't know if I do. I'm just asking.
Can you? I can't hear an echo. You guys can hear anything? I can hear your voice echoing through, saying that you are the truth now instead of Anthony. You know what I'm saying? Thank you so much for that, Deanne, who was saying something. Hey, everyone. David, let me come on to you now. Since we're talking about India and COVID, and last week we sort of moved across from COVID. Where is that terrorist now? COVID.
Well, I'll be very short and sweet with this. Obviously, COVID is still here, but vaccination numbers again keep sounding like a broken record. But the vaccine numbers are going up, which is fantastic. There was a discussion about sort of the uptake within the Black and ethnic community. I'm going to call it people of color. I think I've settled on the term people of color. I'm going to use that term. And what I can say is in the past few months, the numbers have gone up astronomically, and so it's fantastic. Out of the 28, it's about 32 million now people who've taken the vaccine. We're just over 6 million people from who are people of color who have taken the vaccine. So those are positive numbers. we are going in the right direction in terms of people's uptake with regards to vaccination. There's still a way to go, and I think that we've just got to keep on pushing home the fact that the vaccines are safe, the vaccines are effective, and there's a myriad of vaccines that are out there for people to take. And we're in a part of the world that we're fortunate enough to have access to vaccinations. And I know that you just touched on a little bit there the predicament of India. Where you will have heard recently the numbers of people who have unfortunately succumbed to COVID-19 is on the increase. And they are a manufacturer of vaccines. And they ship out vaccines to the rest of the world. So what's happened recently is that the United States have tried to help facilitate the flow of vaccines that can be afforded to people in India, because obviously they need the vaccines out there. They're a manufacturing plant, but they've agreed obviously to push vaccines around the world, but their people also need it as well. This is just a fight for everybody trying to get access to vaccines. So it's admirable that and I use the word admirable there for the United States to embark on that. The UK is also trying to help in efforts in India as well. It's not looking good, and at any point in time, quite obviously, there's going to be a place in the world that has a high number of people who are succumbing to COVID-19. And that place right now, it would seem, is India. And, I would hope that they are able to get this help and assistance for their people, to get the requirements simply as far as oxygen goes, as far as PPE for protective equipment for people as well, and the social distancing, etc. Those sort of things need to really be not enforced, but allowed for in India, to allow them to reduce the rates of infection across the world, across their particular part of the world, and then across the world itself. So it's a big problem for them. But I would hope with the help and assistance of the rest of the world, we'll be able to help with them through their issues and concerns.
Before going to Anthony, let's deal with the vaccine, which is in India. India is manufacturing it, but based on orders from the rest of the world, isn't it? So it's not like India has it for themselves. India is like a manufacturing agent.
That's the thing. They promised these orders to us because their rates of infection were low at the time of the promise. So they are acknowledging it and are sticking to that as a course. But at the same time, there's been a recognition that there are countries who are ahead of the curve. The UK is ahead of the curve from a global standpoint. I think globally the uptake of the virus is about 5% of the population. If that, our uptake is huge. It's high. It's I sound like the person that should not be named, who was ex-president of the United States, when I say it's humongous, but our numbers are big. We're doing very, very well. Bigly. We're doing very bigly. So, I think at last point of call, 50% have had the first vaccine, and around 20%, I want to say, that could be fact checked, have had the second dose as well. Might be a bit lower than that, but we're doing really well. And as I say, there are places like India who are not doing so well because of the fact that they've been shipping out vaccines to other parts of the world.
Anthony, in India, and just like even with the UK, where when they saw the figures, they're saying the UK need to make sure that we're not resting our laurel and get too complacent, because with India there was this election which was going on. Lots of people were out there. There was this festival. Lots of people were out there. From a practical and a management perspective, India managed this wrong, isn't it? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think clearly, as I think Herbert's pointed out as well.
Yes,
they've allowed stadiums to, I think, reopen. I think they even said themselves, India, that they took their eye off the ball, and they've allowed themselves to become a bit complacent, and as a consequence, this this surge has suddenly come about upon them. And in order for them to do this election, I'm very surprised. I mean, last year when we were having our mayoral elections, we cancelled those for that very reason. We didn't want people to be going out, and even with our lockdown strategy, we're still implementing caution, whereby we're waiting to see what stages take place, how things have progressed before we then really open up to the wider public. So I think really that the key here is, sadly, in India's case, it would appear, and I don't want to cast any disparaging comments or remarks without knowing the facts, but from what we see with the surge and the number of cases that we're seeing, it would seem that there has been a little bit of complacency and mismanagement in terms of underestimating what they thought the situation was there on the ground, either in the rural areas or in the cities. And as a consequence now, we're seeing the tragic consequences of those mismanagement activities. And I just hope, like David said, that we can try and help as much as we can play our part, the UK as well as other countries, because we know that, sadly, these transmissions, people travel all over the place. Somebody who's got the virus from India will travel to other countries, and that's just how the virus spreads. So we've got to really make sure that we do our best to try and help. But equally, sadly for India, it would appear they took their eye off the ball.
And I can see where the UK has offered 600 ventilators. I've seen whereby people, Indians, actually are spending some serious money for ventilators on the black market as well, which is like a big business. And I've spoken to a couple Indian friends. But let me just say hi to Paulette, Jodianne, also from on Instagram, and also Michelle Clark. I just wanted to pick up back from that bit with Merkel, why she said Merkel, we must follow examples. She said she took no salary. She and her husband lived in their same flat they lived in before she turned chancellor. Merkel made Germany one of the most stable countries in Europe. The people of Germany love Merkel. So that's a great fan of the Iron Chancellor. Keisha, what's your take on India, your perspective?
Yes, but before I go to India, let's start Germany. I think you're absolutely right, Michelle. Everyone seems to love Angela Merkel. She can't seem to do anything wrong. So yeah, that's a good point. Regarding India, this is one of what I feared, and we spoke about it early during the lockdown, where you have to see the disparity or the social inequality between the rich and poor nations, or the developed nations. And what we're now seeing is, unfortunately, India, who doesn't have a health that has a health system that is drastically or chronically underfunded, now have to deal with this type of pandemic. So you can imagine it's so overwhelming for this nation to handle at this stage. And this is what, and I suppose I didn't want to say inevitably, but I suppose we predicted something like this would happen if this type of this virus actually start ravaging the developing countries, because they just don't have the infrastructure like the West does to combat this type of virus. And what we're also seeing again is, just like in the UK and other wealthy countries, where you find that the rich can stay at home and work from home.
Yes.
And then the poorer people has to go out and work. And then obviously they're in contact with other people who actually have coronavirus. And that's the same thing that's happening actually happened in India as well. So I mean, it's quite unfortunate that we're where we are. It's a bit nervous for me, because I'm thinking, okay, this is happening in India. I think we saw a little bit of spike a couple of months ago in some certain parts of Africa, but it has since declined. And it's just a concern that I hope it doesn't spread beyond India to other developing countries, because, as you can see, there is actually a demand for vaccine. And again, the West are benefiting. They're actually well ahead of all the developing nations in terms of actually having the vaccine. And it can get worse, if we don't really, when I say we, as in the West, intervene quickly to actually to support India.
Okay, can I just quickly say something there? Just very quickly. I think this is also a fantastic advocate for the vaccine. I mean, a lot of people who've been sort of saying, I'm anti-vaccine, all of a sudden, people are realizing, actually, if you want this thing to actually start to subside, the way to do it is to take the vaccine. And I'm going to leave it right there.
I'm going to pick it right back up. And I'm going to pick it right back up. First dose vaccine in India, 5.6%. UK, 51%. Second dose vaccine, fully vaccinated in India, 0.8%. Wow. UK, 21.3%. Wow. Just give you those figures.
So what we're saying then is COVID is still there, like a lurking terrorist. And if countries not careful, it can just infect all over again. That's what
No
they're
doubt,
saying.
no doubt, and it's the mantra here. I would say some people were sick to death of it. Stay at home, save lives, protect the NHS. We all heard that mantra. That was repetitive. It's drummed in now. We'll have that for life on our deathbeds. But the fact is, saving the NHS was key because it means that people can actually go into hospital for other ailments. Granted,
Yes.
more cancer cases, more people dying through other causes because they were worried to come to hospital. But the point is, more people could actually access hospital services if needs be, and it let the doors open for those people who needed it for COVID. And oxygen is a big thing. ITUs are a big thing. It shows the burden on the health service that Keisha so eloquently sort of discussed just a minute ago. So, it's more than the vaccine. I will say it's PPE, it's the health that's afforded to a nation as well. But when you get multiples adding up, stacking up, it's a big problem. And that's what India has at this moment, this big issue. And that's why I started by talking about the fact that they've been pushing out the vaccines from their hubs there for the rest of the westernized world. But actually they need it now. They really need the vaccine. Those figures speak for themselves. 51% first vaccine in the UK, 5% in India. 10 times more.
And India,
that's crazy. And India's a big population. We're talking about percentages. That's all. Yeah. And 51% in the UK, 5% in India. 0.8% second vaccines in India. 21% in the UK.
Well,
it shows how good our efforts have been, but it is to the detriment of another place, unfortunately.
Well, we cannot play with the figures as much, and we just wish and hope for India all the best. I've said to my friend, some legal colleagues, let us know what we can do to support India, because one of the things is that the ventilators, but surprisingly, the black market has so much that is interesting. They said £50 normally what would work out to be a ventilator in the money which they have equivalent, and the guy said he spent £750. It was on the news that £750 for a sister, a guy in Indian chap, and he said, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do? It doesn't make sense. I have the money here, and my sister is dying in India."
Supply and demand, Silbon. Supply and demand. It's unfortunate that they found themselves in this particular situation. I wish them the best and I pray for them.
Yes. Well, anyway, and the last word on that bit there, Anthony. Keisha, you okay? Good.
Yeah.
Listen, America is on the news, and 100 days of Joe Biden, and we had the State of the Union yesterday. Surprisingly, I didn't even know, because Joe Biden made me sleep a lot, so I don't even know. You know what I mean? I didn't know it was happening, but nevertheless, I sort of got the recap. And one of the things which was interesting was, as the topic says, Tim Scott's saying America is not racist, who gave the rebuttal. But first of all, what did you see, or anyone can pick up as was the historical word that Biden said yesterday? He said something.
He said, Madam Vice President and Madam Speaker.
Now I need a drink for David, for Anthony. What drink can we give to Anthony for that? Anthony need a drink or a coffee. Yes. So Keisha, did you hear that? Did you hear what he said?
No, I didn't. I'm waiting for
first time in history. It was a big moment. And Keisha missed it. What's going on,
and
Keisha?
I missed it. Can you believe it?
Wow. So what he said, Madam what? Madam what? What's
Madam Speaker and Madam Vice President.
Right. And after that, was there anything you would say that one of the things that lots of people are saying is that whether the substance or not, it was like we had a presidential State of the Union, a presidential State of the Union whereby it seemed presidential, even though there are less people there in the House because of social distancing.
Well, look, I don't mind kicking this one off. I think he sounded very presidential, and he was very respectful. Yeah. And he also was able to recognize key issues. So the key issues were women's equality, and that's how he started this off. He also recognized the fact that there are injustices that exist for sections of society, and he also, I have to applaud him on this. He also really recognized the fact that there are good cops out there, and that's we talked about this last week. There are hardworking good cops and there are bad cops. There are good hardworking good people and there are bad people. So he took the time to say, look, essentially recognize people's concerns, appreciate them, hit them head on, and talk about that. And I think that was the points that I would take from his speech, is that he really wants to try and unify the United States of America. Now, you might say there's not very much substance to what he said, and you could critique that if you wanted to, but we have to see. This is the first 100 days at the end of the day,
Yes.
and a lot of glitz and glamour comes with that, regardless of whichever president is in charge. So they're going to big up their efforts in the first 100 days and say, look, I've done this, I've done that, this has happened. And we don't know as people whether those things would have transpired regardless of the person in charge. I don't think you can have the manner of the man in the first 100 days or the manner of the woman. What you can judge is the fact that I feel that there's got to be a period of inclusiveness within Americans. And I think you've got to have a way of making sure that I'm speaking as somebody observing America, not wishing them to have power upon the world, but they would like to have that power reignited in their quote unquote. So I think you'll be able to judge him much more within the first year of his presidency rather than the first 100 days. And I know historically we do just the first 100 days for the presidency, but from what he said, I think he acknowledged the fact that there are injustices, and we know that there are injustices that exist within the United States of America. And I think to knock away those and say that it doesn't exist is not the right thing to do. It's to hit it first head on and say, look, this is how we plan to sort things out. And I think that was a good testament. And I like the way he started things off by acknowledging the Madam Speaker and Madam Vice President as well. I think the tough thing that's going to be facing him is money. Money in America, for me, is the big G's. And so what he's trying to do now is reclaim some of those taxes that have been lost historically by hitting the big earners. So I'm going to sit back and wait with bated breath to see how he actually achieves that and the manners of him achieving that, because it's fallen foul for many a president before him to try and entertain that with big business, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about big business, the Googles, the Facebooks, and the like, to try and recoup some of that tax. When people look at it objectively and say, well, it's the top 1% earners, I don't know that that's the biggest amount of real money that's coming out of people's pockets. I think it's going to be the bigger businesses, and we want to see how he achieves that to help with middle America. And I say America is all about the money for me when I look at it objectively. So I don't know how he's going to fight that, because that sounds much more European-esque in the kind of the structure of how he wants to go about his business. So yeah, I'll wait with bated breath. We'll see how he gets on.
Keisha?
I don't really have much to say on Joe Biden at this time. I mean, I think for me, news has been quite slow when it comes to America and politics.
Let me bring in Michelle here. Michelle is in the thing. All I'm going to say is my mask is on the inside. It's called an immune system. I guess he's referring to the vaccine.
The vaccine,
I think the Prime Minister has lost the plot. He's allowing his biases to come out. Okay, I think we're having some delay.
When you say Prime Minister, are you referring to Boris then? Or?
I think Herbert is referring to Boris Johnson.
Okay.
But there's something else which was said, and I put it up there. The rebuttal was Tim Scott. And Tim Scott said something which was very profound, whereby he said, America is not racist, but we cannot ignore racism. And I believe if those are the right terms, and someone can correct me. And Kamala Harris came out and also said she agrees with Tim Scott. Now, Anthony, we've had this debate a lot about institutional racism. What is that saying right there from your perspective? Is that something similar to the report in the UK, whereby it is not saying institutional racism or racism doesn't exist, but there's much more steps or development which has happened over the years that we cannot dismiss?
Well, just before I answer that question, I'd also just like to touch on Joe Biden, because I do feel that, in a way, because he's acting presidential and he's not creating lots of random noise with statements and tweets and generally just sort of talking about himself. In a way, by doing so, he's almost become slightly boring, and actually he's just getting on with the job, which is what people in America want him to do. He's actually getting on and actually taking people out of the troops out of Afghanistan. He's actually addressing the climate change issues. He's obviously he's actually put some money behind the economy in terms of trying to support people's businesses. He's hit the ground running with the vaccine program. These are all the things
that's boring.
So, as far as I'm concerned, I think, boring old Joe actually has done quite a good job. Now,
I agree.
Now, getting back to your specific question, I think, and I think I'm an advocate of the fact that in that statement about America not being racist, and Kamala Harris's response saying actually there were racist elements in America, so she agreed but said there are racist elements. I think that is the case. I don't think you can actually completely say that a country or an industry is institutionally racist. There are, as David has said, you will have people who have biases that are good, and you have people who have biases that are bad. There are going to be good and bad apples all over the place, and sadly, you will have those who are racist apples in those categories as well. Does it mean that the organizations themselves are racist? Does it mean that the leaders are racist? Does it mean the country is racist? And I think what Camilla was trying to do was take the debate down a notch to say we recognize that there is racism. You know, that's not for debate. There is racism in America as there is here. But I think she was trying to say that the country as a whole was not institutionally racist. And I think that's also maybe part of what the report over here in the UK was trying to actually say, but it perhaps got lost in all of the media noise that came out afterwards, where they jumped on other headlines to do with the fact that the BAME tag was going to be dropped and other things that suddenly people were jumping on. But I think they were trying to make the argument there was progress in the area around race and equality.
Yes. Just to pick up on Michelle, and Michelle says this every time we says it when we mention America. She always make this statement: America is a continent, not a country. USA is built on racism. Michelle, for the purpose of the discussion, we mean United States of America when we say America. I understand that America, you got different types of America, but we're talking the United States of America. But we want to acknowledge that because you say it most time, but I sort of ignored it. But just for the record there, what we're talking about is USA. USA, you know what I mean? Keisha, what's your take on what Anthony said right there? And Keisha and Michelle also said America is built on racism. Does that negate the fact that you can move forward just because you're built on racism? Is it can you rightly say it's built on racism when I don't know? I mean, when America was created was when people were leaving the UK, you know, and they said, hey, we don't want to do nothing with the UK, and they created America. And of course, they brought slaves and everybody. They took away the Red Indians from their land. But now that has been the foundation. Where we are now, can we say that because of the historical aspect, that will always be? You cannot get away from it. But as Anthony said, we are moving forward. Kamala Harris has said we are moving forward. Kim Scott is saying, hey, I've experienced racism. You know, my father used to sit at the table and my father used to read the papers. I found out after that he couldn't read the papers, but he was setting an example to say that we need to read. And he's saying now he's a senator and actually he could be tipped for 2024. He's saying, hey, we are not a racist country, but we have racism in it because he has shown that he has moved forward. He has mentioned Barack Obama, who is the first black president. What's your take on that narrative, which I just set out there?
I mean, everyone actually can only speak from their lived experience. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to America, I think Michelle is absolutely right. I mean, America is built on racism. Am I echoing again?
No, we're hearing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So America is built on racism. You talk about, the slave trade, the abolition of slavery.
Yeah.
You said something? Is it feedback?
Yeah, feedback.
I don't know what's happening today.
Oh, sounds better. Good.
That's better. Keep going.
Okay, that's better. So, I mean, I think to an extent, Michelle is absolutely correct. But my issue is with the concept, again, of institutional racism, people not accepting the fact that institutional racism comes with different strands. So when you think about institutional racism, you think about the policies, the procedures, the structural issues relating to that in particular institution or that organization. So if you look at the police force in America, when you have, for example, I understand in the case of George Floyd case, historically there was a lot of like complaints or reports about this regarding Derek Chauvin, and nothing has been investigated. and this allowed to perpetuate to the point where we have a death of George Floyd. And you realize that there's policies, there's procedures, there's people in power, and that's supposed to be having good governance, and there's nothing being done. This is when you actually realize that this is just bigger than just an individual issue, but it's embedded within the institution itself, because nothing has been done about it. And so when you compare a corporation or an institution like that to a whole country, can a whole country be a racist? And they're a racist nation? But to an extent, you can argue that, listen, if you stand by, if you have several government coming into power,
yes,
you stand by and watch, and you have like, for example, one could make the case,
yes,
you have Joe Biden, who's come into effect, who's now president of the United States. You have for years, maybe 400 years, Black America.
Keisha, yeah. I want to pull you up because you keep going on there. The question I'm asking though, at the same time, would you say America and Kamala Harris and Tim Scott had a point? And what Anthony said, breaking it down, is America institutional racist?
Yeah, so I'm trying to answer the question. So my question is, before America being institutionally racist, you have to understand or define what it is. And I've just set out to you what my definition or my interpretation of what an institution is. Now, if you take the same context and apply it to a nation, which is, of course, their policies or procedures or laws or regulation that is not in the best interest of a particular group of people, which is, of course, the Black nation, the Black people in America. You can make the case, though, okay, over how many years, Black people in America have been fighting for.
Yeah. You're going on too much, but
I'm trying to. So my point is, based on all that, if you apply the same scenario to a nation as a whole, one could argue that America is racist.
Okay, fantastic.
It depends on how you want to apply the concept or the term. That's what I'm trying to say.
Fantastic.
So the rules and the regulation hasn't changed for over many years. People are still fighting for certain rights.
Okay, David, I want to pick up David on that point. Yeah,
I don't think America as a whole is racist. I think, again, just putting it back there, I think there's just elements that are racist. If America as a whole was racist, then certain people wouldn't get to particular positions of power. I think what really defines, for me, America is money, and that's what defines things. I don't think it's racism. I think for me it's money. So I think what we'll find is that over time things will change. It's just the rate of pace of change in terms of how things are enacted, and the enactment is what really gets at people, because if you want to identify one particular area where you feel there's a particular injustice, that enactment of change and rate of change is very slow. Okay, yeah. And I think that's what people are drawing themselves to. But I think under this particular president, it will change. We could talk about him being sleepy. I don't agree that he's sleepy, but I can see how you could call him sleepy. It made me smile.
Terms of
yeah, it's an endearment. I know. Jeez, but and Anthony touched on it. We've had years of tweets and such, and it does sound quite laborious and boring to hear somebody sound presidential, and he just sounds presidential. So it's for me, it's actually quite invigorating to hear what he's saying. What I'm trying to say, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say here is what I said at the start. America is not racist. It's not racist. People are racist. There are sections of society that are racist. I think to call the whole of America racist is not a thing. And what I will say about Tim Scott is that he sounded like he was having a presidential bid. He's trying to put himself in the spotlight, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. Long may that continue. We want competition. We want to see people fighting for power so they can do the right things for the communities that they serve. So all praise be to Tim Scott and carry forward his message.
Well, Mark Ross in the States here from Virginia, we have a two-term Black president and now a Black vice president. And his next line is, America is not a racist country. So there are polarized views and various views which are coming through here now.
Yeah, but not because, sorry, Silva, not because somebody as a Black person or somebody that look like myself, for example, reach at the top of their field or profession, doesn't mean that the whole, the institution or the nation is not racist.
No, but what I would say is it speaks to a point, though, doesn't it? It's as you were using in your argument there, different descriptors to say why you feel that America is racist. It speaks to a point that if you have people that reach particular positions, if you have people that are able to go out and stamp their feet and say, we don't want racism to occur in Black Lives Matter marches, if you have people who are able to climb to different echelons of society, if you have the free movement of Black people around and they're able to say what they would like to say as well as white people, I think that these things, if you look at where things were in the 60s, for example, to where they are now, for generally speaking, things are better. And that's why I'm saying that I don't think inherently America is racist, but I think there are racial people within America who are racist. I think there's an appreciation that elements within society would like to see racism continue, for sure, but there are also elements in that society that would not want racism to continue, for sure. And as I say, that's my point I'm trying to make. If anybody's asking what it is I'm trying to say, America is not racist. People are racist.
That's interesting. And I must pick up back on what Tyler Perry also said. Tyler Perry said something profound at the Academy recently. And he's talking about we need to actually start to listen to each other. He's talking about that we need to move forward. And Tyler Perry is a classic example of the American dream. Barack Obama is a classic example of the American dream. LeBron is also a classical example of the American dream, even though he singled out the police the other day and he made an error, but he doesn't want to come back and say he made an error when he said you next, and police are having a go at him at the same time. And also Tim Scott also said something that what was happening before, based on a person's color, which was the divising factor, and the one which is make you feel inferior. Now he's saying that those of a different color as well are now to feel bad because you're now perpetrated as the perpetrator. I mean to say you are now the oppressor just by virtue of your color. So therefore, just because you are white or you're a good person, you are now the enemy. And therefore, the coming together of America is creating a problem. So I believe what Tim Scott said and what Kamala said is a healing process. And I'm not dismissing the fact that there's racism, but I'm also of the irk like Anthony and David that the whole world is not racist. India is India very casted? I mean,
well, we all know that when it comes to India, there's never even a debate in some parts of Brazil.
India is a caste system there. Discrimination.
Yes.
You know, but Keisha, you're gonna say something before I move on from this topic, because
yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, Black people in America have done a lot over the years to mobilize themselves to build up their own community.
Yes.
And for example, you remember the Black Wall Street, and then obviously the Black Wall Street massacre, where obviously all these white people come in and destroy what the Black Wall Street is. And so therefore, when you see a black person rise to the top, it's not necessarily because the nation is not racist. It is possibly because Black people are able to mobilize themselves and support one another to get to another, you know, level, which without the support of your own people, that would never happen.
But okay, fair enough. Okay, well, points taken, guys. Anthony, the last word, the truth.
Well, the truth is, America's not racist.
Okay. Well, Mark Cross is over there saying that we cannot see everything through the lens of race, and I put in Michelle here. Michelle Armstrong ain't gonna change, and especially for Black people, please, you know. But there it goes. Now,
I would like a poll of people in Atlanta whether they think that America is racist. That's what I would like.
I don't think you should go for Atlanta, because I think they'll
why?
say
why not?
Because they will say it is the type of.
Is Atlanta not in America?
Yes, but I just think that if you're looking for someone more favorable to your, you know, to your argument, I don't think you should go for Atlanta. Because
they're more favorable because they're Black.
They're more favorable because there's a lot of successful Black Americans.
What's wrong with that?
In Atlanta than comparatively to other parts of America.
You know, let's get a Black mayor into London there. So can we have Sean Bailey then to be the first Black mayor of London, Anthony?
Well,
I thought you intentionally did that there.
He has just as much of a chance as anybody else on that list to try and he's obviously in the pack. If you want the truth, no, he's not going to become the next mayor. But he has every chance in the sense of he's put himself forward and he's one of the candidates. But in my opinion, sadly, I don't think on this occasion he will be successful, but that's just my opinion based on the debates I've seen him in, what his key messaging has been about recently. I mean, he tends to focus predominantly on knife crime, and knife crime. And I think people in London don't necessarily perceive that knife crime is the biggest issue for them, especially after a pandemic. They're probably looking at economy, jobs. They're probably looking at, other issues to do with low emissions, etc. And, his main argument constantly is always about knife crime. So I think he probably hasn't done himself a favor in terms of how he's come across with his messaging, but he, like anybody else, has an opportunity to win this particular mayoral election because he's actually in it.
Right, that's very interesting, David. I know you're. I brought you into this discussion because you would like to come into London and don't have to pay all these charges. Have you kept an eye on the 6th of May election in London?
I really haven't so much as because I don't think there's really very much competition. Or put it another way, maybe there is too much competition because there's a lot of candidates there to pick from, and it kind of dilutes, I guess, the field as opposed to allowing there to be any reasoned opponent for Sadiq Khan. So I've not really paid attention. I would ask the question as to why the Conservative candidate would just focus on one particular element when seems like there's lots more things, safe travel after COVID,
yes.
People traveling on public transport. What does that mean for me? How is that going to impact me traveling to work and so on and so forth? So I think there's a lot more to it. There's lots of different social questions that could be answered by the mayor-elect. But I just don't think that at this moment in time, there's going to be a candidate that rivals Sadiq Khan. And I actually think that the Conservative candidate might well slip way down the pecking order. And that's my prediction, not really researching much more on the candidates that are there. I'd go for the Buckethead chap because I think he's got sense. But I don't know. I wouldn't, and that's a joke, obviously, but I don't think there's anybody that's going to rival Sadiq Khan. I think it'll just be another mail session for him.
It's interesting it's interesting what Anthony said and what you said right there, and I'll pick up Keisha later on what she said, is that the focus on Sean is a lot on the knife crime and the crime. And what we're saying is that there are more aspects of it. You're out of London and that's what you're hearing more. You think, I just want to show something what someone said here, and it was Herbert. Herbert said something here which is relevant. The 1% of cops are killing the majority of good, hardworking cops. Why I use that example there is that the percentage of knife crime is actually giving the impression as if a lot of it is around, isn't it, Anthony? Because we're not, you and I, we live close by, we're not experiencing that, you know what I mean? But one would think that is the majority of things happening in London.
Well, that's right, and true, and it's sad because it does give the impression that knife crime is out of control here in London, in the capital, and that if you were to read the papers every week, you'd be reading, sadly, that there were killings going on left, right, and centre. I mean, sadly, and I say this with no disrespect to the US, but we don't have the same sorts of mass killings that you see as a result of guns in the US. With knife crime, yes, there is crime, and yes, there are crimes that involve knives. But do we have a situation out of control here, whereby people are being attacked on a regular basis and knife crime is out of control? Then I'd probably, similar to what Herbert is saying there, we do have a minority who are in all the headlines.
Yes. Keisha, the last word, the truth.
Well, I mean, if somebody could bring up the statistics on knife crime, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm aware, it is a problem in London. It's almost like every day you open the newspaper, there's some, or maybe every other day, there is somebody who died because of some type of knife crime. Now, you might say one person out of how many hundred thousands of, let's say, black males, for example, in London. But to me, one death is a big deal, and it's actually happened within our community. So I think it is out of control. I think Sean Bailey is absolutely right to be speaking a lot about it, and he's been doing it repeatedly over the years for a very long time because he started his campaign very early. Unfortunately, now we have the pandemic, which clearly overshadow the whole issue relating to knife crime in London. And I think that is one of the reasons why, Sadiq Khan will actually be successful or be the winner in this election, simply because it appears as if Sean is focusing on what's one or the single issue. And it's a single issue to me, which is close to my heart, in the sense that I'm very much concerned about the amount of death in London. And I think there should be somebody who should be looking at this. Yeah, but unfortunately, because of what's been happening, you're absolutely right, David. What we will see is inevitably Sadiq Khan being re-elected again. And it's quite interesting because I don't think he's done a lot for London and the London people. But guess what? Doesn't matter now, does it? So,
okay. Well, Kima Halini says knife not out of control. I think it is. Crime is on the increase. And Herbert says we agree with you, David. Well, guys, I made it. I made it today at 10 o'clock, and we did it. We did it fantastically, and in a bigly way. David, are you there? Okay, you look a bit like you got frozen there for a second.
No, I'm still here.
Yeah,
I'm
like
still here.
Like that.
Yeah, but guys, I think we have done it, and it's interesting what is happening with the mayoral thing, and I hope Sean will, but not more if it make much difference now. America is something we will have to keep looking at. Surprisingly, we have not heard anything more about that race report at the same time, but I believe.
What race report?
The race report, the one that you guys.
Is another race report?
No, the same one.
That dodgy report.
Well, I think it's dead, isn't it? Is it dead? I don't know. Anton, is it dead?
It must be dead because Boris hasn't come out and actually addressed the fact that they've actually doctored the report.
Okay, right.
But anyway, moving swiftly on.
Right. Anyhow, there's always these allegations.
It's not allegation. It actually came out. It was in the Independent. It was in the Guardian. These are reputable newspapers. They can't be fabricating these things.
Let me shut down this one by simply saying that the guy there who was the spin doctor in number 10, say his name, somebody.
Mr. Cummings.
Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings said he needed to wear glasses. He needed to drive his car
to Barnard Castle
to test his eyesight. He said that nobody believed him, but now everybody's believing him when he says things about Boris. But they didn't believe him at first. You know what I'm trying to say? There we go. Anyway, I don't know if anybody got that one. Anyway, guys, want to thank you so much and have a good weekend. It's a bank holiday Monday for those overseas who know, and I'm gonna jump onto Instagram as well. I think Mark Cross in the States I might do something about the America and whether it's racist or not. It's a big debate, and I know that people jump at your throat if one says what we said a while ago. And Michelle is actually saying, David, you wouldn't lose. I don't know what she meant by that.
She's talking about Atlanta, so I'd like to find out myself.
Atlanta, okay. All right, have a good night. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining, and those on Instagram, those on Facebook, and those on YouTube. And also remember to like and share. And remember this Sunday, tomorrow night, actually, I need to plug this. She'll be upset if I didn't plug this one. I've got a dynamism of Miss Jodie Marie tomorrow night. She's in Jamaica. The dynamism of Jodie Marie of A Gentle Touch of Care, which is a health organization where she does teaching nurses, and very dynamic lady. I'm doing a spate of different shows with dynamism of various persons, not just for ladies only. That's going to be 9 o'clock tomorrow night, and I wish people to come on and to tune into that show. Keeping my roots very close to Jamaica, as you know, and so that's 9 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Jamaica time. That's tomorrow. So have a good night. God bless you and all the best. Michelle, thank you so much for your Kima, Herbert, as usual. Peace out and God bless. Bye-bye.